Okay, the best way to begin these lessons, 17, 18, I think also 19, is to just make a multiplication chart. When you take the state assessment, you'll be able to use a multiplication chart, but you have to make it. So today we're going to learn how to make the multiplication chart, and that way you'll know what to do when you actually sit down and take your real test. To use a multiplication chart, look at the number on the top and the number on the side. If you take your fingers and you run them down, you're going to multiply those two numbers. 2 times 2 is?
4.
Run them down. 2 times 3 is? I'll show you the black marker. In a double stack. Two times 4 is? 8. Raise your hand if you can tell me a pattern that you're noticing.
It's really good home, like adding up 2. I'm just counting by 2 all the way up.
Okay, so you're just counting by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Everybody, what's the next one? Then you stop, double check. Is 6 times 2 12? Yep. What's next?
16, 18.
Boy, I'm glad I got at least 2 people that know how to multiply by 2.
20. 22. 24.
Well, look at this row. 2 times 3 is? 2 times 4 is? 2 times 5? So what do you notice about the row going across? Exactly. So you just copy the numbers down again. 2, 4, 6. Okay, and then the next column, we're going to count by 3s, the next column and the next row. And then you'll do 4s, 5, 6, and so on. Now, if you notice, as you keep multiplying, the numbers start over. See, once I hit the 0, look, once you hit 0, then you have the same pattern again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 0. 2, 4, what would come next? 26, 28. Do you see how it works? So every time you hit 0, your number pattern starts over. So I have this pattern here. Watch, we hit 0. Look, we start with 3, 6. So if you ever get a huge number, you don't know what to do, just continue your pattern. Just know every time you hit 0, then you start over again. Okay, so this is what your multiplication chart looks like completed. And this is what you're going to need to use to... Okay, we're on lesson 17, problem set B. 1B, it says, estimate the quotient for the following problems. Round the divisor first. Raise your hand if you can tell me what the divisor is. What's the divisor?
The bottom number.
Okay, it's the bottom number. It's, what else can you say about it? Divisor. A divisor. Is it the small number or the big number? It's usually a small number. It's the number that goes into the other number. So we have this number. And it says to round the divisor first. What is my divisor? Raise your hand if you can tell me what my divisor is. My divisor is 29. So, shoot, I don't want that. That's still too big. Oh, well. What happens when I round 29? What can I round it to? Up to 30. So, we're going to change 29 to 30. And then it says to round the dividend, not the dividend. Yeah, the dividend. Now here's the trick that you need to pay attention to. This is why we learned how to make a multiplication chart. This is a different form of estimating, so don't forget about the vertical number line that we've done in the past. This is a different way of doing things, so make sure you pay close attention, because you can't just look at it and say, oh, that's 900. So we know that we can separate this number, right, and make it 3 times what? Anybody? 10. So your goal is to now look at the multiples of 3. And to see what happens, well, I already know that it's going to be something like that. So I'm going to go to my place value chart. That number starts with a 9. And I look at it. That's right here. Of course, they were nice. Why is it doing this to me? They're nice on this page, and they just have it right out, right? So what do you think I'm going to round my problem to? 9. What's all the numbers behind it become? Was that Ruth? So now you have 900 divided by 30. Now, if you remember from yesterday, I don't know if your class did it this way, but this is the way we did it. We wrote the number 900 with a 30 on the bottom. And then if there were zeros on top of each other, we just got rid of them. So how many times is 3 going to 9? 3. And then we have a 0, we just bring it down. Okay, so you can just bring the 0 down once you're done with the 3. 30 is your answer. Look at C. What's the first thing you're going to need to do? It's 826. What's the first thing you need to do? Okay. Okay, so you round 37 to 40. And now we look at 826, but we're no longer looking at the 2, and if it's 5 or greater, you round up or whatever. We're looking at just the number itself. So it begins with 8. We know that 4 goes into 8, right? Evenly, right? Do I need to look at my multiplication chart for that? No. No, but some numbers, when they get bigger, you're going to see. So what will my 826 become? 800 because 4 goes into 8, right? That's your whole goal. Your goal is to see how many times the number in the divisor goes into the dividend. You want it to be equal so you don't have any remainders, because then you can't do it in your head. So remember, stack the numbers. Cross out the zeros that are on top of each other. How many times does 4 go into 8? Everybody? 2. Bring down the 0. The answer is 20. Got it? Getting it? Maybe they could practice this with their people. when I leave here. Okay, let's look at the next one, D, before I go on to a more difficult one. 141 divided by 73. Everybody, what number do I round first? Everybody. The divisor or 73. Everybody, what's 73 going to become?
70.
Does 7 go into 1? No. Can it go into 14? Yeah, and sometimes you might not know, but we know it can at least go into 14. So now we're going to look on the place value chart for 14. Is 14 in the same line as the 7? That means it goes into that evenly. Are we going to have to change this number? The only time you have to change it is if it doesn't go into it evenly, like if it was like 15. Does 7 go into 15 evenly? No, so you would have to change the number. I'm going to show you how to change that here in a minute. But we know it goes into 14 evenly, so what will my number become? Does anyone know? 140. Then you're going to take the two numbers. What are you going to do with them? Stack them. Get rid of the zeros. How many times does 7 go into 14? Your answer to that, D is 2. I'm going to go down to L because I think my sub's going to be here in a minute. So look at L, 143 divided by 35. So I'm going to round the divisor first. Everybody, what's the number I'm going to round? 35. Everybody, what's it become?
40.
Okay, look at this. Does 4 go into 1?
No.
Could it go into 14?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Not even.
Can 4 go into 14?
Yes.
Yeah. It can't go into 1, though. We already know that. So now we're going to look at our place value chart. What are we dividing by? 4, right? So we're going to go to the 4 column. And what number are we trying to get close to? 14. Well, here's 12. And here's 16. So 14 is somewhere between 12 and 16, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now this is where I had question yesterday, and this is where Miss Manford, we need to make a decision as 5th grade how we want to do this. Because what you're going to do, guys, is you're going to write the two numbers that it's between. So you take your 14, and you see that 12 is on one side, 16 is on the other, and then you're going to solve it kind of like what you do with a pattern. And this one has 2 numbers, right, away. And this is 2 numbers away. Now in the book, Miss Manford, it says to go with the 12. Why would they say to go with the 12? That doesn't make sense to me. So you look at the next number over. Do we want to add that to it? Okay. Okay, so if it's the same, then look at your last number. If it's 5 or greater, it rounds up. If it's not, then it goes to the lowest number. So the last number is 3. It's not 5, so you would round it to 12. So what number do you end up with? 143 becomes
120.
Now, let me show you what would happen if we rounded like we've always done in the past. If we looked at this and said 143, what would that number become? No? It'd become 100, right? The way we've done it in the past. Does 4 go into 10 evenly? No. So can you do mental math if you have random numbers that you have to carry over? No. So this is why you have to do it this way. So 120 divided by 40, line the numbers up. What do I do with my zeros? What's 12 divided by 4? Let me find another problem like that one we just did. Turn to your homework page. Okay, you're going to turn to your neighbor and figure out what you need to do to solve this problem right here. Okay? Okay, number 3 in my class. What's the first thing you had to do with that problem?
The first thing you're going to do with that problem, you're going to round up divisor to 80 because the 1 is lower than 5.
Okay, so that becomes 80. So the main number 20 on the floor, what's going to be our main number then we're looking at? Which row are we going to be looking at? The 8 row on what? What are we going to be looking at? If I say go to the 8 row, what are you looking at? What's under your knee right now? What's that thing called? Okay, so you're going to go to the 8 row on the multiplication chart. You ask yourself, does 8 go into 4? No. Can it go into 47? Yes. So now what number are we going to look for on the multiplication chart? You're going to look for the number that 47 is, the two numbers that 47 is. Okay, so you're going to look for the two numbers that 47 is between on your multiplication chart. So if I look at my multiplication chart, I go to the 8, and I have 40, 48, 47's right in there, isn't it? So let's see, number 23 at your desk, what 3 numbers am I going to write down then? What 3 numbers am I going to write down after I look at my multiplication chart? No. Anyone else? Let's see. 12 on the floor. What do you think? Okay, but we're not looking at the 100 yet. We have to know whether we're going to round it or not. So what are we going to do first? Sean, what do you think? Nope. Why would I look at my multiplication chart? What did I just say, guys? Thank you. So if you didn't know that just now, I hopefully paid attention. The 3 numbers you're going to write down, because we know now that 47 is between 40 and 48, right? So we're going to write down the lowest number that's between. What's the smallest number it was between? Nathan, what was that again? Okay, it's between these 2 numbers. know that. Now, how are we going to know which one we round closest to?
48 is one more than 47.
Okay, we should see this on your paper, which means you're going to be using scratch paper, or else the back sheet of your other page in your book. Remember? You're going to make your little carrots. 40 to 47, how many spaces is that? 7. 47 to 48, how many spaces is that? Which one's it closest to? 48. So do we just go from 476 to 48? What do we have to do? Okay. Make sure on your scratch paper that you wrote this down just like this, because this is what we're going to be looking for. The only time you use this method is when you divide. All other times you just look at the neighbor if it's 5 or greater, but you have to have an actual number that it will go into evenly. Yes, ma'am. What you want to look at is the space between the numbers. This one has 7 difference, this one has 1, so which number is it closest to? Kind of like when you did your vertical number lines, whichever one it was closest to, you rounded either up or stayed the same. But this one we don't stay the same anymore, this one we go down.
So, Gracie, are you saying if the number was 446 instead of 476, if you put 46 in there, okay.
You just say whatever it's closest to. That's what you change it to. So this one's closest to 48, so that's going to become 480. Well, guys, you got to get out of that mode. You can't just look at it and round anymore. You can't do that.
Division is a different process. You gotta do that one extra step by looking at your multiplication chart.
Okay, how many times does 8 go into 48? So your answer is? Yes, ma'am.